everyone, and welcome to Eternal Mooncast, the streaming show that is all about Sailor Moon fan theories. We cover everything from the prominent to the obscure in the Mooniverse. I'm your host, Michi, with my co-host, Selene, and joining us tonight is Nat, also known as Bird King. Nat is a lover of Sailor Moon for all of her life and has made over 30 Sailor Moon cosplays from it. At least 16 of those are Sailor Neptune. Sailor Neptune is her favorite because of her dynamic with the other characters. She loves her design and feels very inspired by her as a fellow sapphic artist. Welcome back, Nat.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here again.
Quick thing before we start, as always, a quick Moonie disclaimer, everyone. We would like to remind everyone that these are just our personal opinions. We do not in any way represent Toei or the Sailor Moon intellectual property. We invite you to join us tonight as we stream or join our Discord discussions whenever you want. Tonight, we delve into how Sailor Moon influenced the magical girl genre.
Which is such a big topic, but also one that I feel like it's been touched upon, but I am so excited to go over it tonight. When Nat brought this topic to me, I think, especially because of our age ranges, it's going to be a very impactful discussion about really just Sailor Moon and what it meant to us and just how the show also grew with us.
My age range, which we shall not discuss due to Twitch not liking you discussing to how old you actually are, but I can give hints. I think it's interesting because like I've said before, I watched it when it first aired here. I found it if you live in Florida, it was called UPN at the time. And I found it one day when I was sick, home from school, and it changed my life ever since. I've been watching it since then. I don't even remember like what grade I was in. I think it was like literally as it aired in the United States. I would have to look up when it actually got licensed to air here.
You know what? I don't remember either. I just remember discovering it on Toonami. That was my introduction to Sailor Moon, was because I think I was into Dragon Ball Z at first more, believe it or not. But the Toonami block, honestly, the Tenchi Muyo, the DBZ, wasn't that even the time? Was Evangelion in there?
That might
Maybe.
be an adult Swim.
No. Because
Was it Adult
Evangelion was like Sci-Fi Network or something.
Definitely, maybe. I can't remember like all those shows, like they all blend. Oh, Gundam Wing. That's what I was confusing it with. Thank you. Okay, yes. Eva was never on Toonami. I am thinking of Gundam Wing. I am thinking of the original Gundam Wing. Nat, what was your introduction to Sailor Moon?
We didn't really have cable when I was growing up, so my introduction, it like occasionally came on like this on TV, and I didn't really understand TV schedules at the time, so it would just be like a serendipitous like sighting of Sailor Moon. But my primary exposure to it was just going to Blockbuster and repeatedly renting the the movies over and over again. I was like, this is the only thing I want to watch. The girls are pretty. The transformations are fun. Everything is so nice here, and I'm gonna enjoy the hell out of it. So that was my primary exposure. And it wasn't until much later that I actually sat down and like watched it all the way through, and I loved it as much as I remember enjoying the movies. So, I'm very glad to finally have like the full understanding of the continuous plot.
No, and I do think it's how we meet Sailor Moon, especially a lot of us in childhood. Like you said, you probably could recite those movies off by heart to us in like the deep dub.
Yes. Yeah, I think the one I watched the most was the Luna one, the one where it was like the snow queen
The
and
Princess
stuff,
Kaguya.
Princess Kaguya, yeah.
Hearts
Yeah,
and
that
Ice.
I watched that one
So
so
I
many
actually
times.
found the date.
Oh God, how old are you?
And I was actually able to find when UPN premiered it. Sailor Moon was first broadcast. Like it wasn't broadcast anywhere else before it hit Toonami. It was first broadcast in the United States, September 11th, 1995 on UPN's forward block, UPN Kids. So there was only 27 UPN stations across the US. So that means I was lucky that I was living in Florida at the time to be able to access that. So that means only certain states and certain areas in other states, because UPN I know was a big Florida network.
Yeah.
had access to Sailor Moon when it first aired here in the United States. And
Wow.
my back cracked a little. I was like, because I know how old I was now. I'm like, I was little.
No, it what people need to also remember is back in the day, we did not have this streaming where you could just pick from an episode and be like, "Ooh, I wanna watch, like, Haruka and Michiru first meet for the first time. Let me go to season 3, episode blah, blah, blah." No, we got lucky. It was the Russian roulette of anime, and we got
Yeah.
lucky if we got an episode that made sense to the episode we previously watched.
I had to watch the TV Guide channel to find out when it was actually on,
Oh my gosh.
which means I had to watch the little scrolly thing. Actually, I had to the TV Guide book because it came in a magazine that you could get
Mhm.
for the month, and I had to look it up that way to find out how I could watch it because I don't even remember what episode I started on because they only had up to the defeat of Queen Beryl.
Really?
Alan and Anne, their series actually didn't start till like, probably a year or 2 later because they just kept repeating the Queen Beryl series because it wasn't dubbed yet, yes, or they just weren't showing it. But I'm just like, not the TV Guide channel book.
That's I was reading that. I was like, gosh, that brings back
Sounds like
memories.
back in my day,
Yeah,
we didn't
my
have the internet. Literally,
yeah, but my
just didn't
exposure
have
to
internet in our homes.
Alan and was actually they had little tiny books that were like summaries of the like arc of, and I read those a lot.
I
I don't
remember
remember
those.
if I had any other ones,
I remember those.
but I think I checked those out from the library.
'Cause this
Mhm.
is what they look like, I swear, if I'm remembering right, this is what they look like because they were the most cheesy '90s Power Ranger knockoff of, TV or is this it?
I
These,
think
like,
so.
based on the hit TV series.
Yep, yep,
Yep,
yep.
Smile,
Love
that
those.
was it. Yes, I had those because I thought they were the most random things ever because they only had 1 episode in them.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize. I didn't even remember that was only one episode. It was I thought it was a little bit more than that, but I guess not.
Exactly, and, oh, man, so in the company would say it, I remember the hoopla Toonami made. Let's see, about the Super series coming out very briefly, and then they just fizzled out. It did though! It really did. Because they were all hyped up about the season, and then it just absolutely disappeared. And also Twitch of Spades, that does sound like it would be very hard, because they probably wanted to watch Power Rangers instead, but you
Well,
knew which the
I
superior
remember, yeah, for just for S, it was more of a hype for S because it was gonna be the first time premiering in the US on Toonami. And then Supers, I don't even remember Supers making it to the TV.
Really?
I don't remember Pegasus making it to the TV. We would have to look it up on whether or not I missed it because I remember when Heart Snatchers was coming out. I was about to move from Florida to Jersey, and I was so excited because I started watching some of the episodes, and then the moment they announced Cousins, I was not happy because I knew they weren't. I was
Very,
like, "Oh my god, new Sailor Moon episodes."
very close cousins. Incredibly close for some reason.
They're girls and cousins too. God, I'll
Oh
They're
my god, they were cousins.
cousins. As they
Nope.
caress each other's hands and arms, I'm like, "I don't even wanna get near my cousin." You know? Like, no.
Okay, but let's talk about the landscape of the time of magical girl genres, because what we had back then and what it is today are 2 ginormously different. I honestly, I don't even recognize, like, when I was researching, it had to keep reminding me that we did not have access, and that's why I was not able to explore these. I was lucky if I could find a VHS and a tiny little, like, hole in the wall shop in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Like, that was you were praying you found those VHS tapes. Those were gold.
Yeah, the a lot of the older magical girl stuff isn't even subbed, or at least a lot of them weren't subbed in like super recent.
Mhm.
So I'm glad that I started getting into more like 80s and 70s anime and manga. just as these things were starting to finally be either localized or fan subbed. So for the past few years, or past 10 years or so, we've been able to get a lot more.
I think it's because they've
excited
caught
about
up.
it. Yeah.
I think they've caught up. They're like, okay, we have all these newer animes. Everybody's. It's crazy how integrated anime is now compared to like I could speak back when Pokemon first came out and Sailor Moon. Nobody knew what I was talking about.
Hmm.
And I find it really interesting now. And I think that's why is because it's so popular now. Like anime is everywhere. You see it everywhere here now. Thank God, because it makes it easier for me to find it. And I think that's literally what it is. They're like, okay, well, since these mangas are doing so well, why don't we go back and find some other stuff that's not translated yet because of the hype and stuff like that? It'll sell now, even though it's an older manga and older anime. And Crunchyroll's been doing fantastic work because, especially finally since they combined with Foodie, so they only have one. There's more networks and stuff like that for them to actually voice act. So we are seeing this older stuff come around because they're like, oh, people want to watch it. And we're like, yeah, because we couldn't back then. I was like, just sub it. I'm fine if you just put subtitles.
Hmm.
Just give me subtitles. That's all I need.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I think that's a big. I've seen it. You've seen a big boom in the last, like 5 to 10 years, as you're saying. And I think it's just they've caught up. They have the funds
Yeah,
to be able to bring this to us.
Discotheque in particular has been doing a fantastic job bringing those older anime into localization. They've been really doing us a solid acquiring some of the hoops that they've been jumping through to try to acquire like the rights to be able to localize this stuff is truly phenomenal, and they're such a small team and being able to these basically passion projects to localize these things is really phenomenal to see, and I'm really grateful for it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love to see it.
So, what kind of shows did you want to talk about there? The originators, or like the pre-Sailor Moon? Because especially, I'm very curious since now you're into like the vintage magical girls, which is not something I have a ton of experience with. So, I'm all ears.
If we want to start with the very first magical girl, Sally the Witch is considered the first. Aired in she was from 1966. So very, very old. The kind of the defining tropes, or I guess types of magical girl anime that were popular at the time were primarily more everyday situations where they were solving their everyday little issues with these magical powers. Or another subgenre that was particularly popular was idol anime, where they would transform into these older adult versions of themselves, and they would be like idols in the industry. The superhero subgenre that Sailor Moon Sailor Moon wasn't necessarily the first of that subgenre. Cutie Honey is considered the first by Go Nagai, but that was a shonen anime, and it was aimed at boys. So I would say that Sailor Moon was probably one of the first to actually popularize this, aimed at a female audience. So at the time, there was a lot more. The magical girl genre was a lot more heavily weighted towards idol, the idol and like everyday situation type subgenre. The studio that was doing a lot of these anime was a Studio Perio, I think it's pronounced. And there's a couple that are well known. I think Creamy Mommy is probably one of the most well known of that era. That was by Studio Perio, but there was a lot of similar ones that kind of follow that same vein of girls solving their problems or their everyday issues with these magical powers. There was Magical Emmy. Was it Area Emmy? I think it was yeah. Persia was another one. Fancy Lala is a very similar one to Creamy Mommy, where she transforms into an idol. But yeah,
There we go. I'm bringing up the Studio Paradise Magical Girls for you.
yeah, the images.
Yes, I got
So
that
what I'm
ready.
hearing is when you're comparing to that, Sailor Moon definitely did stand out because of the fact that they were fighting monsters and evil. They weren't really doing you get some everyday stuff, but it's hey, it's to get to fighting evil by moonlight,
Yeah. Yeah, it's much
essentially.
more like a superhero centered. This isn't necessarily an original idea. As I said, like Cutie Honey also did this, but also it was also very heavily inspired by Super Sentai shows, which were also super popular at the time. Um,
Yes.
so you can like Power Rangers is probably the most well-known example of that in the US. But you can really see that influence in the different color, like the different defining colors of each character, the teams, fighting like a monster of the week. So yeah, you can definitely see all of those influences tied together in Sailor Moon.
Yeah. They mentioned Naoko is a huge fan of Super Sentai and just
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. It's interesting what she's into, and then the fact that she devoured manga, like, had her house covered in manga, essentially, and I'm always like, "But she was an office lady when she was writing this," and I'm just like, "Heck yeah, you can do anything while being an office worker."
Heck yeah. And I think that's kinda cool 'cause who hasn't heard of Creamy Mommy? Like, I feel like that's one of the OG, like, we have, like, the staples that will never leave the magical girl genre, and that is one of them.
And
But
she was just like doing she's just like a little kid that just wanted to be a magical idol. And so it's much lower stakes than trying to save the world.
just a little, just like a little bit of different stakes. Oh, but I think it's interesting that it was more idle and everyday slice of life because that's actually how Sailor V starts out in the manga. It is a very slice of life. Minako going after boys, Minako wanting to be a school idol. Oh my gosh, we have to go check out this new video game. We had that slice of life with Sailor V, so I'm almost wondering if that's why Sailor V feels lower stake in, at least to me. This is my opinion. Sailor V in the first book feels lower stakes to me than the first book of Sailor Moon. And the reason because of that is it's much more grounded in its slice of life. And what I think is that actually shows that it was more of a product of its time, where it kind of stays, and it means that Naoko took a risk on Sailor Moon. Like, it
Mhm.
sounds like Sailor V would have been the safer option, and it still wasn't that safe. But I think Naoko really swung for the fences with Sailor Moon.
They said that with if you read a lot of articles, Sailor Moon was just something completely different. That's why it busted out of the gates. That's why it's so memorable now is because it unlocked the doors for everything. It was something we had not seen with a shoujo, a maho shoujo. We hadn't seen that before with a magical girl. As Nat was stating, like it was all idols and everyday life. It wasn't doing what the shonens were doing and kicking a bad guy's ass every week or having to save the world, and it's just these girls, and you don't have almost any male influence in Sailor Moon. You have got Tuxedo Mask over here, but Mr. Guy's not doing much, okay? He's the Prince of Earth, but, he's a side piece. He's the eye candy, and that's it.
Yeah, you can definitely see the influence with Sailor V or being a product of its time also just because she's a single magical girl, whereas Sailor Moon is the entire team. So
Mhm.
that was much more typical of the time to just have one person kind of running the show. So yeah, for sure.
Oh, was
Hmm.
friendship not a big theme back then? Like,
Well,
friendship between
there was the I'm trying to think. Like Creamy Mommy was much more about her relationship. I forgot what her guy friend's name was, but the dynamics between the people around her wasn't necessarily there wasn't really a huge like a nice solid friend group that kind of was exemplified in Sailor Moon.
Mhm.
So you're saying a lot of them were solo? Like,
They
there wasn't a whole big group of them like Sailor Moon?
I mean, they had I'm like, I know Hime-chan Chun's ribbon. There was a friend group, but it was more just like her classmates and her trying to like keep her secret of her being
Mhm.
like a magical girl, and eventually opening up to her friends. So there is definitely like those dynamics, but not everyone gets magical powers. It's much more like or more of an isolating experience. It felt
Mhm.
like in terms of being very cloistered and keeping it a secret just to yourself,
Mhm.
which I think I didn't really think about that before, but it's interesting to think about.
And something else Loki brought up that I think is a really good point. I think Loki says, I think also Sailor Moon was the first loud shoujo that unapologetically about being a shoujo. Sailor Moon rebels in what it is. And I think that is one of the key factors.
Naoko didn't give a fuck. She was like, "I'm writing because I wanna write it." Like, she's like, "This is what I'm writing. This is what I'm drawing. Deal with it." Here you go.
Because you got to figure somebody probably tried to talk her out of it. Like a lot of people probably tried to talk her out of it.
I forget where I read I feel like I read somewhere where she thought about, like, toning some things down, and someone was like, "No, just balls to the wall, go." Someone said something. I think she was gonna tone something down, like, later in the series.
It was,
Uh,
I think it was probably the deaths of the characters.
yeah, like, something about that, and they were like, "Just do it, because ma'am just oh, yep, you're dead. You're dead again.
Love the
Fine, I'll
characters.
reincarnate you. Give it out a little death."
No, but and Loki, and she's absolutely right here. It's unapologetically girl power, and because of that, it just worked. Loki, I totally agree. Works because they believe in each other and Sailor Moon, and their power is not only these mystical, like great, like supernatural, like it's not only the escape from reality; it's grounded in friendship, and that's something no matter what translates to humans, I think, is the
Yeah.
camaraderie.
I also think making the characters flawed helped, because all the girls had their own flaws, especially Usagi being, the main heroine. She was a klutz, a crybaby, and you watch her grow up, and I think that was probably a lot different, because like, I've peeked at some of the older stuff, and it was like I was like, "Okay." I literally couldn't get into them because Sailor Moon ruined it for me, essentially. I was like, "Oh, nah, I can't do this. I need,
Yeah.
some fighting action."
I think how I've been thinking about the older magical girl stuff is that they're very much like Barbies, I guess, or where it's more of that kind of like wish fulfillment idea.
Mhm.
In particular, I'm thinking about Mickey Momo is one particular example where she just becomes like the grown up kind of Barbie version of herself, and she takes on these different jobs and roles. I think in the first episode, she like becomes a veterinarian for a horse race. So it's very much like Barbie, you can do anything. But I think Sailor Moon was probably the first thing, first example I can think of where it really brought that shonen power of friendship into play really heavily and really ham-fisted it down.
Hand fisted that girl power, like, you're stronger together.
Hmm.
Believe in yourself.
And then the Twitch of Spades broke up, and I totally agree with him. She really broke the mold, giving each of the girls a balance of strength and shortcomings.
Hmm.
And honestly, it is the girls in their most flawed moments that I feel the most connected to them. Were the in that before Sailor Moon, were they flawed at all, or was they more like the ideal Barbie type that you were saying?
They were, I would say that a lot of them were very mischievous. They weren't necessarily like necessarily like openly flawed, but they were definitely children, and they acted a lot like children. I would say that shoujo at large, particularly like the 70s, was a lot different in terms of it was more that things happen to them that would make that would be more tragic rather than them being particularly like complex characters. Yeah, from what I can think of. Ryoko Akira had a lot of very, very flawed, complex characters, though. The mangaka of Rosa Versailles,
Mm,
highly recommend.
Rosa
Mhm.
Versailles is.
Yeah, that's quite different from the magical girl genre, but it did definitely influence a lot of magical girl stuff, though.
So when you're looking at the 70s and 80s, so you're saying like the magical girls were much younger, they weren't as mature looking as Sailor Moon was drawn.
Oh yeah, for sure. That when I'm thinking, they were typically like probably 10 years old or so. Most of the ones that I can think of, especially the Studio Pero ones, were like elementary schoolers at most.
Mhm.
So yeah, Sailor Moon was definitely much different in that regard. Cutie Honey is much older. She's older than Sailor Moon, I think. She's probably like 16 or something. So
Mhm.
that's the only example that I can think of prior that where we had an older magical girl protagonist.
So in the way I'm seeing it, is Sailor Moon brought in older that like more mature side to shoujo almost,
Mm.
because those are like the images I'm seeing, those look like the kids shows that they have now. Like
Yeah.
Yes.
it's almost shoujo was childish, which would make sense because shoujo was not taken seriously from what I remember until Sailor Moon came out.
I would say or magical girls in particular. I think shoujo at large was pretty mature, at least in like the 70s and 80s. There was a lot of stuff happening in those.
Well, you're like,
Uh, how miserable can we make this child? They were on a mission to make this child's life absolutely miserable.
Oh
But
man.
the more like yeah, magical girl shows were very much like little kids shows. Except for Cutie Honey, that was aimed at boys for the first round.
What I was gonna say earlier, and this ties into what Nat was saying, there is a documentary called Waking Sleeping Beauty. And what it is about the creation of The Little Mermaid and a couple other very famous Disney films. But the reason I bring it up is The Little Mermaid premiered 1989. So we're in the same ballpark of when pre-Sailor Moon. I specifically remember in that documentary, they're talking about Ariel. She is not bizarre, but like changing everything for how a Disney princess is. Because I'm trying to remember his exact wording, but he's like, she is going to go up on land. She is going to go up and find the prince. She is going to fight for him, which never had done. And I'm like, oh, wait, Sailor Moon. This was not done back then. And I think it's both shown in Western media and through Sailor Moon. Like, these are the first, and I think that's why they're so impactful and why they've survived to today.
you have to think of what time it is. It's the 80s. I mean, I saw The Little Mermaid in theaters, and I remember, yeah, I just, I actually saw it several times because Ariel was such a different princess. She was the princess who I wanted to be. Ariel was my favorite, and then you got Belle after that. So you have to think, what time was it? It's late 80s. You've got all of that 80s big hair, girl power starting to come out, because girl power, that's when it started becoming even more and more demanded, and you're seeing a lot of change for women in general. So it reflected in the media in women becoming stronger and being told, hey, you need to take us a little bit more seriously.
The Comfy Witch mentioned that it was yeah, it was at the peak of the second wave feminist movement in Japan. So it checks out that there is so much individualism in Sailor Moon, which is absolutely true.
Mm.
Actually did a paper on the equal employment opportunity laws in Japan and how that kind of
Mhm.
shifted the shoujo genre in general, of like how or around that time there was a lot more kind of female protagonists fulfilling these kind of more managerial roles, kind of roles that men or male protagonists were filling before. So they're much more assertive, a lot more assertive female protagonists around that time. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Because basically it was the perfect storm, right place, right time. There
Mhm.
had to be something about it that makes it so enduring. And the fact that Sailor V came out first to me is interesting because it's like, why did one heroine work and the other heroine didn't as much? Like in Sailor V, I believe, and somebody can, if somebody happens to know, I believe was popular back in the day. And I think that's what made it very interesting is that maybe and as somebody who recently just reread both the first Sailor Moon and the first Sailor V manga, it's they're different. They feel different. They are two different stories. Sailor V in the first manga did not capture me as much, and it is still good, don't get me wrong, it is still good. But it did not capture me as much because the Sailor V manga was, like you were saying, it was a slice of life. It was Minako going up against evil, but it was going up against evil in a way that made it felt more less permanent. Does that make
Mhm.
any sense? Like, it was definitely there, but it didn't the formula wasn't perfect. And I think, like, maybe it was just timing because as Loki was also saying, oh, Spice Girls coming out, women standing together, trying to break into male-dominated fields, and women being friends and all that stuff. This was the perfect time for a story of power and friendship for women, and I think it's just awesome that it happened and exists, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think also just like the fact that Minako is like there's less of that those really strong character dynamics that are present in Sailor Moon, where because she's a little bit more really isolated in her duties.
No, it does feel that way because she is a solo heroine with Artemis. It feels more like it's all about her, and I do miss that aspect of the other scouts and what they bring, and I think I think it does say something that everybody can find usually a scout to identify with.
So I did find something out.
Mm.
So it was done as a one shot, first of all, for Sailor V in a summer vacation issue of Run. And then I guess it was popular enough to actually get 15 chapters that we have now.
Mm.
And apparently they teased for an OVA of Sailor V, but it never came to fruition because they decided to do Sailor Moon instead because Sailor Moon was more popular than the Sailor V mangas. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even be mad. I can't because we got Sailor Moon. It's still a win. A win is still
I
a
mean,
win.
you didn't even get the Sailor V manga until 2011, actually.
I'm sorry, what?
The 2 volumes that we have for Codename Sailor V, we did not actually get into the United States till 2011.
I did not know that. I thought somehow in my brain they were around a lot longer.
In North America, the original Japanese release was never officially localized into English. USA licensed the deluxe edition of Codename Sailor V for an English language release alongside its reprinting of the Sailor Moon manga. The 2 volumes released on September 13th, 2011 and November 15th, 2011.
Wow.
And the only other reprint of Sailor V is the Eternal editions that happened in 2020.
Which I own those ones, but I'm with Twitch of Spades. I'm crying in the club right now. Really? Wow.
Yeah, that's how long it took to get over here. Because it wasn't like they mentioned like a couple of releases in Japan, but they only had 1 reissue. There's not and like I said, it did not do as well as Sailor Moon did. It did not touch the audience and grab them like it makes it and Sailor V, and like I said, it was written as just a summer thing. Like, it wasn't the full thing. It was after that summer promotion magazine of Run Run was when we got the rest of Sailor V. So Sailor V was supposed to be a one shot.
That's wild.
So that makes a lot more sense, probably why it was written the way it was.
Mm.
Now that I'm reading that, I'm like, that makes more sense. So when compared to Sailor Moon, which was not meant to be a one shot, that was meant to be her work for Kodansha. It would make sense in the writing and why it captured you, because that she had to keep that for quite a while. She had to make sure that it was going to be popular enough for Kodansha to keep publishing it in the magazines.
That's wild.
So that's really interesting that I just read. I was like, that makes more sense.
No, that totally makes more sense, and it explains why the beginning of Sailor V is so exactly as Nat described the magical girl landscape. Slice of life, idol, anime, like the everything you described. It's younger. She feels so much younger as a 13-year-old than she does as a 14-year-old in Sailor Moon that I got whiplash. Like, she is so carefree and effervescent, and everything that we associate, like, with, like, the 90s airhead type of Minako, that is who is the beginning of the Sailor V manga. And then by the end, when she regains her memories and goes through that horrible trauma of reliving everything and Ace just passing away, she grows up, and I think that is who we see in the Sailor Moon manga.
We see the leader.
Yeah.
We see the leader of the Sailor Scouts.
Mm.
To be honest, I don't think of them as 15 in Sailor Moon. I'm always they gotta be older.
Yeah.
These girls look way too mature and are doing dealing with situations that are much more mature.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that it was, or yeah, it definitely feels like a much more mature audience target than
Mhm.
pretty much everything else that I've watched or from that time period. As fun as they are, they're very like I just put them on in the background, and even if they're not dubbed, you can still understand the key Japanese phrases or
Mhm.
stock Japanese phrases. It's pretty easy to figure out what they're saying, even if I'm not fully paying attention.
And that is one thing with Sailor Moon, you gotta pay attention, because this
Mhm.
person's related to this person who's working for this person, and evil is complicated.
I think it's much more similar that to Cutie Honey in that regard, where it's like there's like a greater force at play, or there's like a lot of different plot twists and but much heavier in the plot regards, especially towards like the end of each arc. It feels very similar.
And then do we wanna talk about Sailor Moon's expansion and how it became a worldwide phenomenon?
Expanding how?
Because it started out okay, so why Sailor Moon? Why was Sailor Moon the one that got to come to Tatami? And, like, that's something I've always wondered, is, like, why was Sailor Moon the show that got to come over and we got the VHSs and that kinda stuff? Did we ever find out?
I think it's the same reason it did so well in Japan. It it resonated here where I'm trying to think of the time there wasn't magical girl stuff here. We didn't have that. There was Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Oh my god.
That's what we had. And Sabrina the Teenage Witch was not a cartoon at that time. It was I don't even think it was on TV yet, because that doesn't sound I think, it wasn't out just yet, but what I'm saying that came out a little bit later. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, "Wait, that was a little bit later." I remember seeing that when I was a little bit older. But we didn't really have Magical Girl. It was like trying to think of what was on Nickelodeon. There was
I actually have a
cartoons were
list.
all animal based. It was like you had Ren and Stimpy, which should not have been a children's show, by the way, but it was. I remember Heathcliff. I remember Garfield.
Powerpuff
Uh,
Girls.
what?
Powerpuff Girls.
That was later.
Really?
That was 2000.
You're going 2000s for that.
Yeah,
That was that
Um,
period all
they were
blends.
very
when you're
magical girly though.
I'm trying to think what else was on TV. There was I think Power Rangers was coming out around that time, or it would have been like a little bit later, maybe a year later. the 1995. There was on TV was like Clarissa Explains It All. I'm really aging myself. I'm so sorry. And I'm trying to think. There was Hey Dude. There was like Salute Your Shorts, but there was nothing like. It was all like slice of life, like you were saying. Like even for Japan, there wasn't magical girl stuff. There was superheroes like Ninja Turtles, or there was Ghostbusters. That was on. But I can't recall anything during that time frame that was magical girl. Nothing.
I do know that part of at least the financial success was like heavily weighted in like how much merchandise they could sell as like toys to kids. I think, as far as I know, I can't think of a particular example of a more complex or pretty version or pretty examples of like accessories in magical girl anime. Because prior, I think they were much more limited by like, animation technology. Sailor Moon has really complex props in terms of what they had at the time. So I think that was like very popular with kids, and they probably ate that stuff like hotcakes.
I remember getting the wand and the dolls.
Yeah, that stuff's
because
pretty. Toei knows how to make a really pretty
um,
prop.
I'm trying to think. So the dolls and stuff hit here around 98, I want to say. Because my mother actually found them for me. She got me them as like I had done well at school.
Oh,
It was my 5th grade graduation. That's around that was probably 97 then or something like that. 96, 97. They got the dolls over here. And I remember trying to find Sailor Moon merch anywhere I could. And it was in stores over here. It was just a little bit harder to find. But they did bring the dolls over. They brought those. I have them in my case. They weren't cute.
Oh
You
yeah,
asked?
oh yeah,
Funny
those
is,
dudes.
you
those
asked?
dolls. Those dolls are American based. They didn't have those in Japan.
They did not do a good job on them.
But you have to think at the time, these were fantastic.
Yeah. Look at
If
that.
it wasn't a Barbie doll, this was fantastic when it was not a Barbie doll. I had all of these dolls. I still do. I have actually like I was able to find someone who had those dolls still in their boxes. They're in my cases, so I was able to rebuy them. I played with those all the time. I had the wand. I had the crescent jewelry box.
Did you have this? The moon cycle?
Yes, I do, and it's in the case. My original one.
Cycle.
My original car. The car. The stupid shit. The toys that they made for this.
Yes, and this is from moonsisters.org, the images I'm showing you, which they have done a fabulous job. The article is called The Lost Dolls of Sailor Moon, and I highly recommend, if you're a fan, I highly recommend checking it out because, like, they do a great job of breaking down everything about the dolls.
They were so ugly, but
at that
I
forehead.
loved my dolls.
Look at that 5 head.
I mean, the
that
card
head.
captor dolls were not any better because I have those too.
Wait.
But I remember getting these, and I remember scouring stores to find anything, and like my mom would find Kmart is who sold them first. Yeah, it's because they were using the tiaras off from the small dolls for that. I didn't have that one.
The tiniest little crown.
I know I have one of the big dolls. I would have to find her. Because like the dolls I played with, I heavily played with those dolls. I have them in like a moving box because they need to be restored because I would wash the uniforms, I would wash their hair, and it was just those were my favorite. I am mad that because I remember like I found an older kids magazine actually because we've been cleaning stuff up. I found a kids magazine back from when like Harry Potter first came out, which would have been 2000. But it had like a Sailor Moon article of all the Sailor Moon toys that were coming out at that time. And I was like, shut the front door.
Wait.
And I was like, that's adorable. And it was just like, they wanted something that would sell toys.
And you know
Yeah.
what? Smart. This is the perfect
Toei
show
knew.
for it.
I forget one of the American
Every little
toys that was really
transformation.
stupid. I'm mad that I didn't get it though, because I would love to, because I love having the American toys in my collection. It was a mirror, a stupid mirror, and you would click on it, and one of the scouts would talk and like
What
tell
eat
you
that
a
up.
fortune. And I wish I had bought it just so I had it in my collection. But it was like I said, is if they could make a toy of it, they did.
Yeah, because like we will get more into the merchandise of Sailor Moon in a later
Mhm.
episode. But literally, like if you look here, like they did the Starlights and gave them casual outfits. Cursed image of Minako.
Those Starlight dolls never came out. Not
We'll
here,
we'll come
unless
back
those
to
are
that.
like Japan-based dolls.
Let's see. Moon Sisters says, speaking of, many prototypes for the Japanese and other Asian Sailor Moon dolls showed them with bendable arms, and yet none of the dolls can actually bend their arms as shown. That's all that is with that picture.
Yeah, those never came out, just like the Nehelenia doll, because there's a prototype for a Nehelenia doll. There it is. And she never came out.
Yep. I think we've been down. Oh, yeah, because we
We've
mentioned
been
this.
down this rabbit hole and how angry I was that she never made it. Because it was like fall, what did it say? Fall of what?
Fall
That she was supposed to come
2002.
out? Yeah.
Fall 20. Fall 2. Yeah,
'Cause
20.
I remember that article back in 2002 because I was waiting for it. I was waiting for that doll to be released, and then it never did. Because that's when KB Toys and shit started to like.
Yeah, because she even has a description. It's a product 73500 Queen Nehelenia, 11.5-inch vinyl doll in a window box. Leader of the Dead Moon Circus, she fights the Sailor Scouts, trying to get her hands on the golden crystal to make her beautiful and powerful forever.
I would love to know if anybody has that prototype.
You would pay so much money.
Like, I would love to know if someone has that prototype doll. Please, if you're out there in the universe, hear my thoughts.
Okay, Queen Nehelenia.
Hear my thoughts. I want this doll. But yeah, Nat was saying, like you guys are saying, it was toys.
Boys.
It was toys, and literally that's why so many cartoons were made. It was to sell toys, and Sailor Moon could sell toys because you had 5 dolls.
Even better than this. Yeah, and then even better than the Spice Girls, they kept expanding.
And they have new outfits for every transformation, new props and accessories for every transformation. Like, you could get so much money off of that. And that's how Toei made most of the money from Sailor Moon is that
Mhm.
merchandise. So they know how to design a nice little toy.
Yet they don't give us the toys we want. Where's
Alas.
my Nehelenia doll, Toei?
Oh, but you know what? You're so right. As a marketing person, if you were suddenly given a show that not only is there one main character with multiple outfits that you can make a doll of, there is 5. That is like a marketing dream.
And then you go, but wait, we're gonna add 4 more later. Oh, and you can have this male character too.
Oh, yeah. Ken.
That's the Ken doll.
Yeah.
He's just Ken.
He's there to be the just. But yeah, you know what? You're so right. It alls, and especially back then, that was like the golden age of Barbie in the
Mhm.
90s. She could do anything, and you know what? Sailor Moon had her disguise pen, so could she. Barbie who?
Like, I remember some of that stuff, and it's funny because one of the things I remember, but apparently there's you can't find it or people don't have images of it, is the Star Locket
Mhm.
that was released in the United States, and I've only seen it once, and it was so interesting, like, some of the stuff I remember from then and trying to get a hold of, and I was like, "I'm even more into the series, give me the stuff," and then I got adult money, and that happens. Don't get adult money, you buy shit and fill your house with it.
All 3 of us. But, so that does explain a lot, actually, about their influence. And then is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about before we start talking about how Sailor Moon started influencing other shows?
Not that I can think of.
I can. The only thing I can think of right now, like just to mention, is the door that Sailor Moon opened for anime in general. I think over here because like you were watching Dragon Ball Z first, but I'm gonna tell you when for anime, Sailor Moon was the first one I ever saw anywhere, and then I saw Pokemon, and that was about it.
Yeah,
I don't remember seeing any. I mean, there was Astro Boy, but that's not my cup of tea. I want pretty.
Was
Uh,
WB
Those
Kids
three.
around then?
The kids started a little bit later, but I mean, Sailor Moon opened the door for Cardcaptor Sakura to come out too. Because I remember Cardcaptor Sakura, I think was 2000. Hold on, we will.
The anime was like 1998 or something. I might have come over here at 2000.
2000 June's WB Kids starting June 17th of 2000.
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember that. And I was so excited because I was like, oh my God, it's another magical girl like Sailor Moon. And I was super excited.
Yeah, that's another rabbit hole, but they tried to of merchandise and them trying to market it over here.
You mean card captors?
It's card captors. Yeah, they tried to I think they tried to make the cards into like trading cards, but it didn't really work very well because they're not really supposed to be trading cards.
I remember the photo cards, like the screenshot cards. I have those.
Okay. They turned like the cloud cards into, or they tried to turn the cloud cards into trading cards for some reason, I think.
That's wild.
Or did they try to do like a Pokemon type card game with it? Because I know they tried doing that. They also tried doing that with Sailor Moon. It was like
Yeah.
I had
almost like
those.
Magic.
I had those. I sold those recently. I had the full deck where it was like every color of each scout, and it was like a full deck with no. It was like the most nonsensical to me.
Convoluted game ever.
Yes,
Like I tried and I was like, I can't.
I couldn't understand it at all. Also, can I say card captors had dolls, and I'm jealous of that.
Had what?
Their dolls looked better. Like, look at this. Their dolls were way better.
They were also in 2000.
Oh, that's why. Never mind. I retract complaint.
Oh, like the Sailor Moon dolls were like 96, 97. Those were 2000. I have all those dolls, and I have the Cloud Book. Like, I bought everything that I could find. I remember, like, I would find it in Target, and I would beg my parents to buy it because I had done a certain amount of chores. They got me, and that's why I'm a collector now.
It starts young. But okay, so then I guess let's start delving into Sailor Moon's effect and this will tie into the history, I think, because Sailor Moon, it changed the landscape. Like, there's no other real way to say it. It's hard to find a show that does not have some semblance of Sailor Moon influence in it to me. And
I
I'm
mean,
interested.
Magical Girl, yeah, because it's you don't really see the solo Magical Girl as much anymore. I'm trying to think of one. I think Ultramaniac, but I think there's maybe 2 girls in that one. You start seeing the 5 group of the girls. But that's a big thing. They start at 5 and then they go up from there. But I mean, it's usually like a 5 group to start. I think that's a really big influence for that, and they all have distinct colors.
Which also ties back into Power Rangers.
I guess from the very direct influence, you could, I know Ito, one of the animation directors on Sailor Moon, went off to help with Princess Tutu, which was somewhat solo, except for Kreihi. And then Ikuhara went off in response to Sailor Moon, went off to direct Utena. Supposedly, these were supposed to be 2 very different responses to interpretations of Mamoru. And according to some, there was some writings about it online, but Kito was like one interpretation of. I just watched Fruits Basket, not Akito. Oh my god, what is his name? Is it Akito? The purple hair man, the prince. Is that? Look it
No.
up real fast.
I have not seen Utena, so I cannot help you.
Oh my god, what is his name? Oh, why isn't
I've watched Utena so many times, so it's slipping my mind.
I know I marathoned the entirety of Utena
Yeah.
making a costume, and I know this character. I see his face in my head.
Akio.
Yes,
Akio.
There we
Okay.
go. There we go. I was like,
close. You were
I was
close.
like, yeah, I just watched Fruits Basket, and they were all saying Akito. That's not the same name. They're both toxic characters that have very similar names. And like Muto is supposed to be like this other interpretation of Mamoru, supposedly. So that's a very direct example of like influence. But you don't necessarily see the same tropes per se, like ones that Sailor popularized. But I do think it's really interesting how like the responses to them directing Sailor Moon became like these more meta magical girls, for lack of a better term, to deconstruct these typical tropes aside from the Sentai and the monster of the week things. So thinking about that is just like really interesting because those two are probably like my favorite magical girl series aside from Sailor Moon, just because they approach those more like heavier topics that wasn't really prevalent in the magical girl genre beforehand. So
and
I'm
it's
really glad they, yeah.
No, like the fact that you brought that up, I did not know that they were based on Mamo, but now I see it. They took Muto and they took Tuxedo Mask's uselessness, and they just went to a 20.
Cedar Map also had amnesia. So
Oh, that's true.
that's what I was thinking. You said that I was like, yes.
And
Yes.
also, I see it in Kaleido Star, which I believe is the same director as Princess Tutu. I see it in The Fool. I see The Fool as like a perverted version of Artemis.
Yeah, for sure.
But especially for those who haven't seen it, a Kaleido Star is based on Cirque du Soleil with magical girls. 10 out of 10 recommend. Don't ask how it works. It's a very...
They don't have magic.
They do.
Technically.
I mean,
A little bit.
They
It just has
train,
a little dash of magic, not too heavy.
but it's watching Kaleido Star when I did. But it's not supposed to be magic. It's supposed to be the magic of the show, like that you're watching for the circus. And Michi and I have had a little bit of argument on this because I don't see Kaleido Star as magical girl because she doesn't like while she has the full character, she doesn't like actually transform.
Yeah.
And that's my argument. She doesn't actually have powers. She trains. Like you watch her train to be able to do these moves. Now she does have the moment of like, the magical where, oh, I'm able to do this jump like the force, essentially.
You're not wrong.
Power of be it the spirit is
Yes.
embodying.
But I do recommend to go watch it because it is Chef's Kiss, a stunning series. I love Sora. Like, I've actually cosplayed from it. I cosplayed. What is his face? Who's the silver-haired man?
Leon.
I've actually cosplayed Leon with my friend doing Sora because we shipped them really hard. It was a lot of fun. I love Leon.
Sora.
Yes, Nat does an awesome Sora.
If I ever bring Leon back, I'll let you know.
I will have to hunt down your Leon. This sounds phenomenal.
And then Layla Hamilton has my heart. So, because she's so good. She's okay. Sorry, we're getting off topic. Back to Sailor Moon. All right, because I can go off on Kaleido Star for a solid hour. But back to the other shows that you were bringing up. It is wild to see that Sailor Moon started those shows because Utena does a 180 to me, like in tone. Because that show starts dark, stays dark, it is dark to me.
Yeah. I know that some people don't even categorize Utena as a magical girl. I think it definitely is. But knowing that it also started partially because Ikuhara wasn't able to make his Haruka Michiru movie like he wanted to. It was like, I'll go make my own little lesbian show. And
He's like,
just
there will be
started this
lesbians.
entire show because of that. I'm like, thank you, Ikuhara. And now, like, knowing just how all of these directors that worked on Sailor Moon just went off to create these phenomenal works that inspired so many other things. Like, you see a lot of sapphic things are very heavily inspired off Utena. Just seeing how it has influenced other things is really phenomenal. Even if they don't carry those magical girl tropes that we see so popularized today.
Because I definitely feel like right now there is a certain expectation for a magical girl anime that you must hit a certain number of these like unwritten rules of shoujo. Otherwise, you're not a shoujo. Definitely to me, like I'm trying to think of current magical girls, and for some reason in my brain, Akko keeps coming up like from Little Witch Academia. That show will not leave my brain and how we're talking about it because especially with how you talked about the first witch, that anime.
Sally the Witch.
Thank you. It's interesting because I never thought it's gonna sound real stupid. I never thought that magic would equate to witches, because for Sailor Moon, it's an everyday girl who finds out she's actually this super powerful being, and she's actually like super. And, she can use magic, and I think it almost like opened up a door in a way that it was an everyday girl, and that we could all relate to her. Oh, look, I did bad on my math test too last week. But look, she's going to be queen of the world someday.
Yep. We all bow down to our overlord who cannot do math.
All hail the bun.
I mean, you don't need math to rule the world.
This is
There.
true.
And we'll get into, I have a couple videos I want to play a little bit later that also show other people's journeys. But Sailor Moon, I think especially at its core, is about friendship and a magical, everyday girls in a magical world. Does that make sense? And it's that grounding of reality in escapism that I really love because it makes it feel tangible to me.
Yeah, it's definitely very relatable.
I mean, I find it really interesting just how much like you see it widespread with the influence. And I always think because it's very interesting when you look at the anime of Sailor Moon, because it is much brighter than the manga of Sailor Moon. And I almost feel because I'm thinking of like Madoka. And I'm like, Madoka went there. It went dark for a magical girl series. But again, you see the separation of the five girls, the primary colors. You see it in Tokyo Mew Mew, which I'm very excited about coming back out. You see it in crap. I just had the freaking magical girl series in my head.
Precure?
Yeah, Precure's huge.
Yeah, Precure is immensely popular in Japan, even more so than Sailor Moon.
Oh,
On
yeah.
the subject of Precure, because I've mentioned this. I find it so funny. So Sailor Moon influenced all this stuff, right? Animation styles. It influenced artwork for magical girls and how it was drawn and how pretty and blah, blah, blah. But when you look at the Eternal movie, you can see influences of Precure in the artwork.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I found that so interesting that
We've come full circle.
I find it interesting how popular Precure is. But like I could not get into Precure, and I think it's because I feel like it's much younger based. I couldn't connect with any of the issues the characters had. Like I was like, these are children. I can't watch those. I can't remember what the anime was. My brain just went, oh. I had
trying to
Tokyo
think
Mew Mew
of-
and I had something else.
Well,
I
actually,
think of other ones that were after. There's Pita 10,
Oh, pre-tier.
non pre-tier. Yeah, that was one.
That was a good one. That was a very interesting magical girl one.
What a
Because it was a reverse harem magical girl.
what a mix.
That was so that was interesting because it is only one heroine.
oh, Mermaid Melody. Sailor Denzel is right. I am a huge Mermaid Melody stan.
Peachy, was it Peachy Peachy Peach?
Yes.
Is that how it's
Yeah.
said
Peachy
in
Peachy
Japanese?
Peach Mermaid Melody.
And
Funny,
again,
another
that
one.
started with what, like 5 mermaids at first?
3, and then 5, and then 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they come
Again,
in
all
waves.
unique colors.
I was so
The main
bitter.
girl looked like Sailor Moon with her pigtails.
Who's your
Yep.
favorite? I'm curious, Nat. And Mermaid
I
Melody.
forgot what her name was, but I was so bitter. The periwinkle girl,
Noelle.
the Noelle. Yes. I was so bitter that she only appeared like in her like normal like mermaid form like once or twice in the entire series. But I like the villains a lot because I think they're very funny. I'm cosplaying Mimi with my friend is Shishi fairly soon. We're like halfway done, so
I love that.
I remembered what the series was.
What?
Shugo Chara. And I'm like, bring it back. Bring Shugo Chara back. I wish more people actually I barely find people who know. They're like, what? And I was like, listen, her emotions are eggs.
so many eggs.
She
has
has so
the
many
most-
eggs.
she
She
has the
lays
most
them, she
eggs.
wakes up and there's eggs. And then there's the cat boy.
Every series needs a spicy cat boy. Tokyo Mew Mew had one.
After that.
Yeah, because
Feel-
he did turn into a cat. I'm excited to see the new Tokyo Mew Mew because I do find it interesting that when Sailor Moon announced Sailor Moon Crystal, so here's another influence so we can tie it back in. We're starting to see on these 25th anniversaries of animes that were made back in early 2009, like late 90s, early 2000s, that did not follow their mangas getting redone. And I am excited because the Tokyo Mew Mew anime did not follow the manga, just like Sailor Moon. Just like the original Sailor Moon, the original Tokyo Mew Mew anime, while fantastic, don't get me wrong, was so confusing when I went to go read the manga. How different some of the things were. I was like, I got jarred. I was like, hold on. Especially when it comes to, is his name Rio, I think is the blonde guy? Because he's my favorite. I love him. He's the one who helps run the cafe with the other older dude.
Yeah.
But I'm excited that we got, again, 5 girls, each with their distinct colors. Although I think there's a 6th one, the rabbit one. She comes in
Berry.
a la mode or something.
Yeah.
Barry,
Barry.
yeah. The rabbit.
She comes later. So I'm excited to see that. But I've noticed that animes after, because I don't remember anything before Sailor Moon Crystal. I don't remember seeing a lot of animes being remade.
Yeah.
Now
Now
but
that
after
I'm thinking about it, I don't think I remember
so
any of
that, like,
Fruits
I'm
Basket.
thinking about it. I didn't see that many. But after they did Sailor Moon Crystal, I feel like these anime studios saw how well it did, even though Sailor Moon Crystal, they should have put more money into it instead of making an internet series in the beginning.
Hunter
I've got-
Hunter.
Huh?
Actually, Hunter Hunter. That was 2011, so that's one prior example that was
Mhm.
rebooted because the one before that was 1999, but I can't think of any other
I
ones.
think because the 1999, they like abruptly stopped it, didn't
Yeah.
they? Like out of nowhere. So they were like, oh, let's just freaking remake it. I can't even find the original one that was released. That one's very hard to find
Really?
compared to the newer one.
I found it on pirating sites. Yeah, I haven't found another one.
I found it on a boat somewhere in the middle of the sea. Yeah, that was like one of the only ones I remember before Sailor Moon. But when Sailor Moon announced, hey, we're remaking it, but we're following the manga, even though they didn't. That's when we started seeing a lot more on anniversaries, they're remaking these series, and I'm happy for it. I was like, heck yeah, Sailor Moon, you start that movement. Because there's some animes where I'm like, can we get a remake of this, please?
And then I have a question if either of you guys happen to know. Twitch of Spades brought up, I've heard Princess Tutu also deviates pretty heavily from manga to anime. I have never delved into Prince. Okay, Nat, you got some. Okay, I'm curious. What? I'm so
The
curious.
manga is not the same. It is not good.
Because the anime came first, didn't?
Yeah, I think the anime actually came first. The manga is very weird. Adel is a villain for some reason, and she is wearing a very revealing outfit. It is like a fever dream. It is nothing like the anime, and I'm glad for it because it is weird.
Yeah. Tutu was supposed to be an anime only. Like they made
Yeah.
it as an anime because I remember when it first came out, we actually had internet when it came out. I remember Googling it because I was like, can I get the manga? Because I love the series. I want to get the manga. And there was no manga. It was like, this is an straight to anime. There was no manga. So I think, yeah, the manga came afterwards, which is probably why it's so weird.
Probably.
Yeah. I know I watched a video about the production that was like really interesting about how Ito went through the design process of making Princess Tutu. I'll have to find it and set it at some point, but because it is very interesting watch.
Also, Twitch of Spades, how dare you come for Drosselmeyer like that? Twitch of Spades is like, pretty weird. We already had Drosselmeyer. Drosselmeyer is an angel. I love him so much. He's horrible. Don't ever trust him. Don't ever trust Drosselmeyer.
He's consistent. He has very much the mindset of the mangaka from 70s shoujo of how can we make these people as miserable as possible. And that's my favorite type of story, so we are kindred spirit.
Fakir deserves better.
Fakir deserves better.
My baby son.
I'm so.
Oh my gosh, but Precure is actually something I wanted to talk about because I think it is actually one of the shows that pays the most homage to Sailor Moon. And to start with the argument,
yes.
And this is in no way a knock. I am a big Cure Chocolat and Cure Macaron stan. I'm a huge stan of these two. If anything, I feel like these two, Cure Macaron and Cure Chocolat, a pre-Cure a la mode, are almost a more modernized version of Haruka and Michiru. And for those who have never seen a pre-Cure a la mode, is exactly what it sounds like. Is way more geared towards children. They run a bake shop and they fight villains with like pastries, and it's adorable. And I'm explaining it horribly, but these two, as soon I kept seeing fan art of them as Haruka and Michiru, and that is how I actually became aware of pre-Cure a la mode. I didn't realize that they had that closely followed the characters.
They knew a formula that worked, and it was like, I'm sold. Yes, give me more.
But they did it so well because what they did in the show is they made them older, so it made sense that a romance could happen, which they did in Sailor Moon, though I still say they feel like they're early 20s in Sailor Moon to me.
Even though they're only like 16. Not even.
They're driving a helicopter for some reason. They're
at
driving
16.
At 16.
Because they enter school, they enter high school in Stars.
They do. Oh my god. Yeah. Can you imagine your high school self driving a helicopter?
What was the was it a real quote that someone said that they didn't have a license, Haruka, or something? Was that a real quote that Haruka doesn't have a license?
Yes. See, that's it.
Haruka's not old enough to have a license.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
I'm a famous race car driver. Don't worry about it.
I use this to be popular with the girls.
Because it's Makoto. Makoto's in the back seat, and it's something to do with Star, with Heart Snatchers. And they hammer in the cousins a little bit, so I'm trying to not remember that part. But it's something like, oh, where'd you get your license? And Haruka's like, oh, there's me somewhere. I am.
Don't worry about it.
Meanwhile,
details.
Semantics. But it's so funny because just that whole scene is a mess. But where was I going with that? But yeah, Cure Macaron and Cure Chocolat, I would say are almost like they deal with different theming though. And I do see the hallmark of Sailor Moon in that they deal with dark theme. Yukari Cure Macaron deals with a theme that reminded me a lot of Sailor Neptune. Because one thing I don't think a lot of people remember is Sailor Neptune actually had a dark beginning to her story. Kari Macaron is all about the theme of self-acceptance and loneliness and feeling isolated because of being a perfectionist and always achieving the highest results and everybody only seeing you as this high achiever, which I see also in Michiru. She was a talented painter and violinist, and we can go on for a while, but she was isolated by herself. So I very much see that they're taking the iconic, like, characterization? I don't know what you would say, but the stuff that works.
Setup.
The setup.
The ingredients.
Yes, the ingredients. The formula of Sailor Moon. They're taking different parts of the formula and reworking it. And I seeing that because, like, Sailor Moon touched on stuff that wasn't really popular, and I love seeing it in how it evolves.
For sure. And Precure sure knows how to sell some merch because those accessories are very pretty. Toei took notes and knew that that stuff would sell well. So,
Except they can't give us more Sailor Moon stuff. Like, we're adults now. We have adult money.
Yeah.
Give me more Sailor Moon stuff, please.
I'm so bitter about the landscape of most US merch for Sailor Moon. It's just like clip art, slam it on there. I want something nice and subtle.
Adult.
Japan gets so much nice stuff. I'm like,
I mean, if you look at the Sailor Moon collection from like Hot Topic and Box Lunch, especially Box Lunch's side of it, it's subtle nerdy because I own most of my clothing is
oh yes,
like 75% of my wardrobe is Sailor Moon.
But it's not. There's no outer senshi almost ever.
There's that one hoodie they did.
And one random Haruka shirt. The rest didn't get it.
Why is Haruka just clip art in a box?
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Like the Haruka shirt I have from Hot Topic is actually her like standing there, and then there's like her move behind her. But she was the only one who got one, along with Pluto. Her and Pluto got shirts, like I'm talking like 8 years ago. And now they have shirts on there, but it's like it looks like the books that you guys had pulled up earlier with that block on the side, and it's like half their face. And I'm like, this was nice though. I like this.
Yeah, I do like the Sailor Stars shirt.
I'm excited for the star stuff. I'm like, because they've already started like releasing some of the stuff, and I'm like, give me, because Sailor Stars is my favorite, and I'm like, yes, more merch. We will buy it. Please release it.
Something I wanted to talk about was the 2000s, which my brain keeps mistaking as the 90s. The 90s still went on for an extra decade in my head. Like, the 1990s takes place between 1990 and 2010.
To be fair, a lot of the stuff that was technically 90s only came over here in 2000, so it's still 90s.
Okay, so you get where I'm going with this. So, here's the thing. I was a huge, and I don't know if anyone else remembers it. Do you guys remember the show Witch? It wasn't as popular as Winx. It was an Italian magical girl show.
I did love Witch. I didn't actually watch it, but I had the little comic books and those. Hit those up.
They were so great. Okay, so Disney actually did it. I think. Okay, so long story short, Disney tried to buy the rights to Sailor Moon, and they got turned down, as far as I know. And if you guys have anything to add to that, but it was basic Saban Moon. Enough said. And for those who don't know what Saban Moon is, I highly suggest you look it up. And yes, that was real.
Because they've uncovered the lost 2 episodes that they have.
And
it's on YouTube. Trust me, you can find it. It's horrifying, actually.
It is genuinely horrifying. But which genuinely reminded me a lot of Sailor Moon and how it was grounded in friendship. And it's also the same 5 teenage girls chosen to be guardians with a princess. This is the show for anybody who's not sure of the show I'm talking about. And which actually stood for their initials, Will, Irma, Tarani, Cornelia, and Haylin. And what I thought was interesting is it reminds me a lot of Sailor Moon, but in this show, the princess is not a fighter, where I feel like that almost like a hallmark. So it's kind of a different way that it got to evolve is that instead like, the girls were like the powerful, the guardians, like they kept that. But then I thought it was interesting that they're not like how to say this, like they don't have the princess that Sailor Moon that the scouts do to themselves. And I just feel like I saw Sailor Moon in the cartoons as I was growing up.
You're seeing the dynamic, which
Yeah.
Sailor Moon created a dynamic that worked because we saw how it became popular here in the States, and it was a winning combo, essentially, especially for the anime. Because, like I've mentioned, the manga is much darker, and they made the anime much lighter. Like, people do die in the anime, but not not like they do in the manga. In the manga, they're just yeah. We were going over Stars last week, and we watched how quickly Mamoru got killed by Galaxia. She went, "Poop." She poked him, and he was gone. And I was like, Jesus Christ. But that just that influence, the dynamic of the girls, the where certain things are gonna go, the tropes for the girls. Because you have someone who's the crybaby slash klutz. You've got the brainiac, who's the bookworm, this and that. You've got Mars, like the model type, the fiery, that or she's a priestess or does some kind of religion. You've got Makoto, you've got the one who's good at cooking or cleaning or sewing, the house stuff and takes care of the girls. And then you have a Minako type who's like an idol, who wants to be a singer, who wants to dress cute or be popular. You tend to see the inner scouts mostly. You don't see as much of the outer scouts unless the show goes past 5 girls. And the moment the show goes past 5 girls, you find some of the outer scouts' personalities. And that's what I found. The moment they go past that, you get the more mature group of girls, like the even more mature group of girls. So I find it really interesting because, again, Sailor Moon was the first to do that. You don't see it anywhere else. Sailor Moon was the first to break out and put that out there, and people latched onto it. And it's interesting because you want to know what else is influenced by it now that I think about it? That came out? The Disney Fairy series.
I love that series.
They're all a unique color. They're not magical, they're fairies,
Yeah.
but they have all their little unique colors. They have their own personalities and it's I look at them like you're working with the dynamic that Sailor Moon brought out and established first, essentially. And you're working with that recipe to make something very I love the Disney Fairy series. I watch the Tinkerbell movies. I think they're phenomenal.
Great.
But I was just thinking about that. I was like, "Oh shit, the Disney Fairies." I'm trying to think of what other shows like in the States. I know
Totally Spies.
you've got the
Technically
Witch, you've
canon.
got Winx,
Totally
technically
Spies.
My Little Pony.
They're
My
coming
Little
out with
Pony,
a
the
seventh-
newer series, is influenced by that.
Oh yeah.
Totally Spies is influenced by Charlie's Angels.
Oh.
That's Charlie's Angels.
Interesting. Is
You know,
Charlie's
but,
Angels
yeah.
the original Sailor Moon?
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Yeah, because they even have like the older gentleman that they respond to for missions and stuff like
You're
that. So
so right.
it's Charlie's Angels, but the personalities you could say for Spies is a little bit Sailor Moon. But if you go and look at Charlie's Angels, like it's the 3-girl group. They're they're supposed to be adults, so the Sailor Moon aspect for the spies show would be from the fact that they're younger. They love shopping, they love doing this, they love being a high school girl. Are they high school? They're high school, right?
Yeah, they're high
Yeah,
school.
they are.
They love being high school girls.
High school into college.
I had another series. Rainbow Bright, even though that came out before Sailor Moon, I find that interesting. It was very much like colorful and all that kind of stuff. So that was like one of those earlier influenced by the magical girls that were going on. But like I was saying, I remembered now, the My Little Pony, the most recent one, not the one that just came out, but the one that was very popular that started the whole
Friendship is
My
magic.
Little Pony movement and having conventions. It's very Sailor Moon based with the dynamic of the characters. Like Twilight Sparkle, she's Mercury. She's Mercury, but she's got the Princess Serenity aspect. She's the hidden princess within herself. You've got Rarity, who I look at as Minako. You've got Applejack, who's Makoto. Fluttershy is, I wouldn't say she's anyone.
She's Ami, but a little, but less of the Brainiac aspect. Or
And
Saturn,
then
maybe.
probably is Usagi. No one can change my mind. And then Rainbow Dash is also like more of like a Makoto aspect because she's out there, she's doing things. But it's got very much that Sailor Moon dynamic with that power. I mean, that's the whole thing is friendship is magic.
And you know what?
They
That
really hit it on the head.
that might as well be Sailor Moon's tagline.
What else we got?
Oh, She-Ra, definitely the modern one.
The modern She-Ra, yes. The 80s, early 90s one is definitely influenced by He-Man.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Trying to think what else. I'm looking because I'm like, oh, I can't remember most of the stuff I watched when I was younger.
Steven Universe also has a little bit of that influence. They had the Utena, that one Utena episode.
They did. I remember that.
I'm trying to think of like just American series. I'm like, because I mean, like a lot of the younger shows, you'll see if there's any magic in them, they've definitely got like some Sailor Moon basis to them. Like I said, it's working with that dynamic because that dynamic sells. It sells the show. It gets people hooked.
Has that DNA.
Also, as kids, we're trying to figure out what friends are. We're trying to figure out friendship dynamics. And I know I'm an only child, so that for me was very, very different because and that was nice in Sailor Moon is some of the characters didn't have brothers and sisters because it was more of the norm and where I grew up where people had brothers and sisters. So it was like interesting to see you got to see every kind of dynamic and also learn about friendship in a way that was like safe, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, Makoto lives alone from what I remember too. Yeah.
Both parents died, I believe.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone lives alone. Ami's mom's like almost never home. So
yeah.
Yeah. And Ray's dad is never home.
We don't know many of the parents except for Usagi's.
Yeah, Usagi is the only one with the standard family life that you would see.
And she has another a past life mom too.
She does. She gets a bonus.
She extra moms.
Extra
you have to share with the class.
Just like,
give us more moms.
No. And Miraculous Ladybug.
Oh yeah. Big time.
Yeah, Miraculous.
I freaking love it.
They had the egg aspect, right? It felt very Shugo Shara to me.
Definitely. No, Miraculous Ladybug, it definitely gives that Tuxedo Mask Usagi beginning vibe of will they, won't they, will they, won't they?
Oh yeah, because like Usagi was like, oh, Tuxedo Mask, you're so sexy, and then she like absolutely despises Mamoru until she finds out that they're the same person.
But Miraculous Ladybug, I don't think they've found out still.
They have apparently, from what I have heard, they've found out several times, and then some miraculous thing happens where like their memories are destroyed or something. And
I'm
apparently
done.
this has
'Cause, like,
happened
I haven't been
3
watching the
times.
series because I'm like, I want to binge watch it when I know that they're gonna find out who each other is.
They found out several times apparently, but according to the fates of writing, they've decided that they cannot be together.
Oh, that's
Absolutely
so funny.
wild.
Eventually, they gotta get together. They gotta.
But then the
Uh,
series would have to end.
I mean, I don't think it would have to end because they still have to beat Mr.
Yeah.
Mothman.
Yeah, it's
And I'm
true.
just like, come on.
We're back with Eternal Mooncast. Since we talked a little bit about our feelings and all that, I also wanted to bring in other Moonies' perspectives and us talk about what they have to say because there are a lot of really great Moonie researchers who have delved into this topic. And the first one I want to bring up is a YouTube video called How Sailor Moon Changed the World by Bonsai Pop. And I'm just going to play a little clip because I thought what was said is really interesting.
To mention in the OP, it shows all of the Sailor Scouts fighting together, but it takes a while for them to all show up in the show. I remember really wanting to see how they came together. In fact, the episodes where the new Sailor Scouts came into the group were the ones that were most exciting for me. American cartoons didn't make you wait for things like that. And take Rugrats, for example. You see Tommy, Chucky, Angelica fill in low in the intro, and that's what you get. But Sailor Moon understood suspense. You want to see Sailor Saturn almost destroy the Earth? You gotta wait till season 3, episode 30 for that. And season 3 didn't even air until 2000, which is like 5 years after the shit. It took them 130 episodes to get to Sailor Saturn.
So that was just the first part I wanted to bring up because that's a good point. The Sailor Moon did suspense in such a good way. And besides, he was talking about, when the scouts got introduced, it was exciting. It was like, ooh, there's this new person. And even like Makoto coming in. Ooh, she saves Usagi. Ooh, she has pretty rose earrings. Like, who is this mysterious girl? Like, they're built up episodes.
Yeah,
And
that
we're
was
not dragged out.
that's how I felt about the Outer Senshi when I was little because they would appear so briefly. I was like, wait, come back. And I was just like hungering for more. Oh, they're the pretty people that appear briefly and are so powerful and cool. And then they disappear again. Like, I want to see more of them. But yeah, I remember at the end of the Hearts and Ice movie that I watched so many times as a child. Like, if I remember correctly, they just came in pretty briefly at the end. I was like, they're the superheroes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, just as like small, that's part of why the Outer Senshi felt so special to me. It was just like how rare occurring they were, and just it was always such a treat to have them appear, especially with how rare they appeared in episodes.
So little. But they teased them like mofos in the beginning opening.
Please, I want to see them.
It's
Like-
because they don't love you. You're being punished. This is why you don't get them. You did something. You did something in a past life
I don't.
that caused
was.
this karma.
They don't want me to perceive the lesbians, the cousins.
Because they do it.
Wow. I did the whole suspense aspect where they said Sailor Moon did it like correctly, and they are right because it is not like Dragon Ball Z time, where it took 10 episodes to get to the one thing that they have been talking about in the end episode since that first episode, but it took 10 episodes to get there. Sailor Moon has a good pace, like a really good the way it's paced, and you're not like if it teases something, okay, well, we're gonna either see it this episode or next episode.
I
So,
think the past
like that point.
lives. Yeah, I think the past live stuff was good at, or a good choice in terms of things to keep under wraps until the end. Or a lot of like the mysteries didn't come until, or weren't answered until the end of arcs. Who has the talisman? Not you. Not you.
Okay. But rereading, I just reread that manga. And for those who are interested, if you're rereading the Eternal edition, it's the Sailor Venus one. It is so anticlimactic compared to Uranus and Neptune's deaths that the talismans are. Oh, look, we have these. Let's use them.
Yeah, the end of S in the 90s anime was so good that seeing it adapted in Crystal, especially, was just kind of like making my brain go a little numb.
No, and it's true. And it's just like, why?
Ikuhara, that was one of the Ikuhara directed episodes, was the death of Uranus and Neptune. It was like, Ikuhara, you madman, you're genius. You made this so dramatic.
Also,
and
the
delicious."
animation was always better in those episodes.
Yeah.
You could
Yeah, for
tell
sure.
the episode was going to be good because you were like, there's more budget in this episode, I feel like.
It was,
There's
yeah,
more shading on that. There's more self-shading. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
yeah, that particular episode, you could definitely see like the starts of the Ikuhara DNA with the framing and like the just like how the cuts were done and like the bits of symbolism. That particular episode just had so much pre-Utena DNA for me, so it's
So
definitely one of my
much.
favorites. With the coffins, the hallway, the red, so good.
No, and that one, and by the way, fun fact, Uranus's symbol is upside down in that episode.
Oh.
I know, because I used it as a
Now I have to
reference.
interrupt.
Oh my gosh.
I will pull this up because this literally messed with me so much. I got into an argument with somebody about which way the symbol went because of this episode.
Oh my gosh. Guhara, was this intentional or not?
They died so often.
That or it was too late.
They found them, they're like,
It's too late now. We're not redrawing all that.
no, but I honestly wonder because they did the symbols backward, the one symbol backwards.
Someone didn't do their flip correctly.
And it's like the longest. Oh, I can't find the image. And now this is good. I found it. This is bugging me. I'm going to prove myself. Oh, wait, or is this a fan redo? Somebody tell me if this is real or not. I'm really bad at remembering. It doesn't look like the right animation, but that's the
No.
symbol. That's the moment in the show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This moment. And their symbol, Haruka's symbol is flipped wrong.
Yeah.
I can't find it. But anyway, that's just an animation error I like to always mention because it caused me strife.
Guhara made this episode so tightly directed and nice, but he didn't pay attention to the important detail of the direction of their symbols.
He was like, who was in charge of those panels? Who drew those? Who painted them?
Why should the symbol be straight? Nothing else is in the episode.
This trip. Oh my god.
I'm going to be fired. Yeah, so that's something else I wanted to bring up because Sailor Moon, as we were saying, kind of played to a different audience because it did have a lot of suspense. I did, especially in the intros, when that first season intro comes in and you get all these previews and then you only get Usagi, it hits different. At least
They're coming.
Like, where's the other ones that you just showed?
yes.
Whenever I watch the opening, like I still get goosebumps because I was like, this shit was so good. I was watching such good shit as a child. Like, it's still, the theme is, or the opening with all the characters is still so, it hits.
It really does. And let's see. And then the other video I have that I wanted to talk about is a video by Vice. And it's called How Sailor Moon Transformed Queer 90s Kids' Lives. And it's part of their American Obsession. And it takes place at Anime Expo 2015. So that's where this clip is from.
Oh, God. 2015.
Let's see. All right.
See, over the past 2 years, we've dedicated a full day to the series because the fandom demands it. Some days for me, it still doesn't feel real working on it. Sailor Moon has a very pure message that's easy to understand on the surface, but when you dig deeper, there's lots and lots of layers. If you take it at its very basic form, a team of girls defeating an enemy is very simple to understand. But as you learn the personalities of each of the characters and even the villains that they fight, it becomes very complex.
I know her. I didn't.
And that's just the first part. But sorry, go ahead. Continue. What were you going to say?
It's Charlene. I was like, I recognize that person.
So wait, who is she?
Shar, she's now or she was the head of Crunchyroll Expo. Of the Hime Cup, the contest. And she was a pretty prolific cosplayer, or
Citrine cosplay.
Citrine, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
She was in charge of essentially the magical girl, like the Sailor Moon side for Viz Media.
Okay.
And she now does not work with magical girls. She does Capcom. She now works with Capcom for them. But she was actually, I met her after her cosplay days, but my wife actually remembers her as Citrine Cosplay when she was very big in the Moonie community for cosplay. And then she ended up working with Viz Media, especially during this remake when they started redoing all this stuff. Like, she was very involved in that. And I actually did get to meet her in person because I cosplayed at the cosplay competition that Viz Media did.
That's so cool.
She does
Did
a lot
you-
of ice skating costumes now that are very cool. I like to look at she does so many cool little rhinestones designs.
I just love it. I just love what you said because I like to point out that she said that there was a demand for a full day of Sailor Moon. There is a demand.
We are older and we have money and we're hungry.
Way, please feed us.
Please.
Stop giving us crumbs.
Yes. But like she said, it's a simple story on the surface, but there is so much more deep down, which I think is part of what you're talking about and what we've been talking about all night is how many layers there is underneath to Sailor Moon.
In the 90s and early 2000s, when Sailor Moon was dubbed here in North America originally, some of the relationships were changed. One that really comes to mind was Haruka and Michiru. There are different famous anime couples throughout the years, and Uranus and Neptune are one of them. In the English version, they made them cousins, but then in the Japanese classic, they're lovers. The scene that really stood out for me was when Uranus and Neptune are about ready to go into a big battle, and Uranus talks about how she has blood on her hand when she fight, and Neptune just hands and says, "What?" It was just a very knowing moment. The love just kept growing. I never seen anything like this in any type of media, not just animation or anime. Because art needs to be encouraged. Life is too short to not be who you really want to be.
Or I hit it.
I would like to write him a personal thank you letter.
Thank you for giving us the gaze in our 90s media.
Because, that scene, I'm sorry, I like your hands. What Michi stan doesn't want to immediately go,
It's okay. I like your hands, even if they have blood on them, together.
so good. It's so good.
Iconic.
And just, what's funny is I watched the 90s deep dub, so that whole scene confused me so badly as a child because they were cousins.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Yeah, there's no other way to read it. You read that entire episode.
absolutely, all that makes it is incest, and that's a whole different level of problem.
Homosexuality? Incest. What is preferred?
When you put it like that.
Yeah.
But as someone who was growing up in that landscape who learned what a lesbian was through the Golden Girls, because I learned about it through the episode with Dorothy's high school friend. That's how because I grew up in a very conservative city in Pennsylvania. So Sailor Moon, I fully bought the cousins. I thought it was weird because they didn't act like cousins. At least no cousins I knew acted like that. But finding the show as an adult when I was especially questioning my sexuality, this show meant more to me in those few weeks than I think it ever and it meant a lot to me as a kid. I have a picture somewhere of me, and I was like 8 or 9 years old at Easter, and I'm wearing my Sailor Moon hoodie, and I think I'm the coolest person on the planet.
Excuse me, you were the coolest person on the planet. I don't know what you're talking about.
Thank
I second this notion.
So when they did the whole cousins thing, I had been watching. Like I've mentioned, I used to live in Florida. I grew up in Florida. I grew up in South Florida near Tate's Comics. And so I had watched the show in Japanese with subtitles where they're lovers. And I remember it so vividly because I was sitting on the couch in my grandparents' house. I was so excited because The Heart Snatchers was finally on TV on Toonami. And the moment they said cousins, I got up and I was like, what? I screamed it in the house because I was so upset. And at that time, I was 8th grade when it was coming out. And at that time, my own sexuality, I knew I was gay. I knew I was gay as fuck. Did I tell anyone? No. I didn't come out till I was much older. So to see that happen upset me. Like it was visceral. I was so angry, so upset. My mom ran into the room because she thought something had happened. And she was like,
Something
what's wrong? I was like, they made them cousins. They're twins. My mom just stood there. And she was like, are you serious right now? That's what you're having a conniption about? I went, yes. Because I'm standing my ground. They are lesbians, not cousins. And my mom's like, walked away from me. So I was actually very upset when they did that. I'm glad that has been fixed. But as someone who was in the closet at that time, because I had known I swung all the ways because I'm pansexual. I didn't know what it was, but I found girls very pretty along with boys. So when they did that in the English dub, it was actually heartbreaking because at that time, there were not gay characters in media that I was watching. And I remember like crying myself to sleep that they had done that to them because I had connected with them because I was like, yeah, I'm definitely not straight. And I was like, but look, these beautiful ladies love one another. And then America media was not ready for that, especially children's media, as they claimed it was. And that's what they did. It was not nice. So, but yeah, Sailor Moon helped as that documentary was talking about like help the queer community. So when they did that, like it was detrimental to me as someone growing up who was like, oh, I have a show I can connect with those two characters because I know one day I'll come out of the closet. And then for America's media to be like, yeah, we're not going to show you that. We're just going to call them cousins. I'm sure I'm not the only one who felt that way. If people had gotten a chance to actually know who they were before that episode aired.
It would have saved me so much time.
It would have saved me so much time. Oh my god.
And just like how they're perceived in the show as like very just like almost celebrity status is definitely very I guess unique, especially in the American show landscape. Just how they're almost like an object of worship almost for the intercentric, especially Haruka. Oh, he's so hot. And then they find out that Haruka's a woman, or at least or is a woman in the 90s anime. And then they still idolize them. It's like, oh my god, she's so hot.
Yes.
Oh, Sailor Moon's bisexual. But
Yeah. Usagi is the bisexual queen.
And
exactly.
Also, I want to point out, this is not just an old problem. Because do you guys remember when Sailor Moon Stars got re-released with the Biz dub, this happened. And if you guys can't read it, it says FRIENDSHIP, friendship.
Yeah.
And they got shit on.
Yeah.
Badly. And I
love
remember
this.
that they were like, "Hey, if you got one with that said friendship, we're gonna send you a new one for free."
That says partners. Wow. It like
Wow.
fix it. But yeah, I'm still mad. This.
Yeah, they got shit on. It
Yeah.
was bad. I remember when that first released and people saw it, and social media just blowing up.
They
I was
learned
like,
they couldn't sweep things under the rug back in like today. It's never gonna happen again. And then this was the very glorious that Loki was trying to show earlier.
"Yeah,
Oh,
that's
Charts.
the cream."
What a perfect wig. Oh my god.
I remember Loki telling me she was known because when she was cosplaying was when we couldn't get really good wigs. Like
Uh-huh.
her method of making wigs was, I want to say, not Tumblr, but something online. Like because that was when you were able to get stuff. Her wigs were very well known because of how well they were with what we could get over here for cosplay.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
probably like an Amphigory wig or something.
That's wild.
Loki said that wig is 3 wigs sewn together. That
Oh my god. Yeah, for sure.
That
Based on the photo quality, I can tell it's an old.
that's
There were a lot of
early 2000s conventions.
yeah. You would not have resources back then, like fabric.
That's not a cell phone picture. That's a click and
Yeah.
develop picture.
Yeah, fabric was hard as hell to find, and any color, spandex especially, wigs, terrible options.
Mm.
You had to do some weird hinging. So yeah,
And now you
that
can get wigs on Amazon for like $20. They're actually really good quality.
yeah, it's bonkers. Like how much how widely available resources are now. Like back in my day. Even though I haven't even been in the costume, like I haven't actually been doing costuming that long compared to not having any resources available. Like even within the last 10 years, bot cosplays especially have gone through the roof in terms of quality. It's absolutely bonkers.
Yeah,
So,
the quality you can get on some bot cosplays now.
yeah.
Like, there's a couple cosplays now that I'm older, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to con crunch anymore. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Now, if it's something unique, like it's off of fan art, yes, I'm gonna have to make it. But like schoolgirl uniforms, I will never make one again.
Yeah.
Why? The quality that you can now get for cosplays, like I got it was for Michi's group. We were cosplaying the Sailor Scouts as the rough girl gang kind of thing. And the cosplay I'm wearing in the pictures is from Amazon. And it's fantastic quality.
It did look it even.
Yeah, like that was an Amazon cosplay because I'm like, I'm not, and like the cosplay like sites you can go to now, the
Doki is a lot
yeah,
of them. Yeah.
the quality is insane. Like some of them, I know friends who've like gotten them and they're like, I had to do some things to it, but the base was amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Like it's cheaper for a lot of like the more complex stuff. It's like straight up cheaper to buy a costume than to make it for the same quality because of the quantity of like techniques and trims that a lot of them use. And like even back in 2011 when I started, like eBay costumes were synonymous with shitty quality. Like you would say looks like an eBay costume, but now it's
Yeah.
like eBay costumes are nice.
Yeah.
And a lot of things are really nice.
They have, you have to think the cosplay stores they now have over
Yeah.
there in Japan and all this stuff. It's insane what, well, that's a lot of years actually. It's over 10 years.
Yeah.
But just the quality and stuff we can get now is insane.
Yeah. And I want to play actually the last part of this clip because it talks a little bit about Sailor Moon and cosplay. And I want to relate that back to our point tonight. So this is the last of the clip.
His relationship is hard about like something does being lover because I always thought that chemistry in the original lover made no sense. But now it makes sense and it's being like we hear stories all the time that people discover Sailor Moon. they can discover at many different parts in their life, in many different life stages. Gave them courage to do something that they wouldn't otherwise do.
I thought it went into cosplay, but it must be a different part of the video. But let's talk about that little bit right there. About how, would you guys say that Sailor Moon gave you courage?
Yes.
It shaped who I am today. Sailor Moon is the reason I'm actually here to this day. And I tell people that that's why I'm tattooed with it.
Yes. Your tattoo
Um,
is amazing.
Sailor Moon saved my life. Sailor Moon was my friend growing up. I had no friends, and Sailor Moon was my friend. So, and it gave me courage because when I came back to the cosplay community, after unfortunately, when I was cosplaying, was in 2005 is when I was first cosplaying, and I actually went to conventions. Unfortunately, that was before the consent thing at cons was a huge thing, like where you see signs. I was going to cons before you saw those signs, and unfortunately, I dealt with something. I dropped out of cosplay. And I came back to cosplay because I had a Princess Serenity cosplay, and I was like, "I look really pretty in this. I wanna cosplay again." I was like, and Sailor Moon would tell me not to give up.
Aww.
So, it's actually how I came back was, my Sailor Moon cosplay, and then my Queen Helenia. It's my crowning glory.
It's so good. It's so darn good.
But yeah, I would have to say, Sailor Moon gave me so much confidence, and that's why I am still obsessed. That's why my house is covered in it. And I love my wife for allowing me to do such things. I actually met my wife because of Sailor Moon,
Oh, that's true.
because I was cosplaying Princess Serenity, and my friend posted a picture of a photo shoot I did. It was
Mhm.
my Princess Serenity cosplay, and that's how me and my wife met.
That's so cute.
I know. We're so gay for one another. She is definitely my Haruka, so
I love that.
or my Seiya. I'm a Usagi Seiya shipper, so
You have the Neptune color hair.
I do. I don't play a violin. I tried once, and I was like, I don't want to do this. My fingers hurt.
That I feel that my mom plays violin, and I like started violin as a child briefly. If only I held on to it, I would have been a perfect Michi.
I did flute. Flute didn't hurt as bad. Like the strings cutting into my poor little fingers. So I was like, oh, this hurts. I don't like this. I understand you had to build calluses, but I was like, I don't want to get to that point.
Kidder's finger strength must be ungodly. But back to Sailor Moon and what it means to us. And we've done, Selene and I went into this a little bit, and it's interesting because I had a fan actually message me in the DMs on Instagram and ask me, like, why are we doing this? Why are we so passionate about Sailor Moon? And Celine just explained her reasoning. But for me, honestly, I thought a lot about it after I talked to them. And it was Sailor Moon was not cool when I was growing up. Like, just to give you context, she was the coolest thing on the planet to me. She was not cool in any way in Midwestern Pennsylvania in the 90s. And unfortunately, it did not enable me to make magical friendships at first. It back then, like what I was hoping for. And I guess why we were doing this one, it's like I'm doing it also partly for little me that wished that she could have found other Moonies and connected with them. Because that's been one of the greatest parts of my adult life is meeting other adults like you guys who are into Sailor Moon, who it meant just as much to you guys as it did to me, and you guys passed it's a cartoon, which don't even get me started on that. But like, there is something so special about how Sailor Moon connects people that it honestly just means the world to me. And I'm doing this show, I guess you would say, for little me who wanted to make Sailor Moon friends. And now I get to connect Moonies all over. Yeah. So that's my little soapbox.
Oh boy,
It's
is my
yours now,
turn?
Nat.
Oh boy. I feel very similarly where when I was younger, I didn't really have that much space to latch onto it, because I didn't really have I was only able to get it in like these small doses of obsessively renting out the blockbuster movies and seeing it briefly on TV when I could. So I guess coming into it more fully in adulthood, I am returning to that nostalgia and fulfilling everything that I wanted to as a child, of being able to buy all of the merchandise. When I passed by the Artemis plush that was hanging up at Blockbuster that I wanted so badly, but I wasn't able to get. But yeah, just the cosplay community in particular, I think nowadays is absolutely fantastic for Moonies, and it's so widespread in terms of uh, because there are a lot of resources for people to cosplay it themselves, especially thanks to groups like Cosmic Coterie, who put out like tons of patterns for people to make their own fantastic looking senshi cosplays, and like and that has really brought out so many people from the woodwork and cosplaying in full force. I met so many like fantastic passionate people through the fandom, and also just like the fact that you can put on like any of the wigs and put on an outfit or like whatever you want and still be recognizable as the characters is like so fantastic to me. I can do 16 versions of Michiru, and only maybe half of them are canon, and people will still be able to, they're like, yep, that's a Michiru cosplayer. And it's just like a fantastic conversation starter because so many people love Sailor Moon. It's great. So I'm really glad. I'm really grateful to the Sailor Moon. Yeah.
You mentioning the whole like you can put on anything. Funny story. So I was a cosplay guest for MetroCon and could not fit like my Sailor Moon. Like I didn't want to wear my Serenity cosplay because I was so tired of wearing a corset. As because I did Helenia and I did Princess Serenity, and I was like, I don't want to wear the corset. I don't have any other cosplays with me, because these are what I'm known for under my cosplay name. And I was able to go into the dealer's room and find this adorable, like 50s style dress and get accessories and just put my wig on it. And people loved it.
Yeah, it's great. Like you could just vaguely, this is something the character would wear, and they have so many outfits in the 90s anime that like they
That's
might as
exactly what
well.
I did.
Yeah. So you could just
And I was like, I'm
something
so
on.
comfortable.
Yeah, it's great.
And to bring it back to our point for tonight, I think that is something that Sailor Moon has influenced, because we got to see girls wearing other outfits besides just their like battle outfit after Sailor Moon.
For their school uniform.
No,
There was a lot of fashion.
yeah.
in
No
the show.
stock uniform, no stock outfit for these characters. We're going to come up
Mhm.
with new cool outfits every single episode.
Yes, and it was so good. And honestly, so many of those outfits are still iconic. But
I know there's
okay.
a couple of Usagis that I want to cosplay still.
I love so many of her outfits.
My favorite's the white shirt with the blue suspenders skirt one. And
Yeah, I
she
love
wears
that
the
one.
moon pendant.
I was just thinking about that one. The also there was one that it was like a blue kind of, it was like a royal blue top that had like white buttons and like a sailor
Yes.
collar
And
that I
the
liked
like
a lot.
white collar.
And the
Yeah.
umbrella. The umbrella.
And yeah, that one's good too.
One. But there was one article I wanted to finish off the episode with
Okay.
you guys. So it's called 10 Anime Trends Sailor Moon Basically Started, and it's from Comic Book Resources, and it goes down, and I'm just curious if you guys agree with them, if stuff that we already happened to mention comes up tonight, because I didn't read this. I left it as like a fun, because I trust Comic Book Resources. They're a really great Sailor Moon article company. And this one is by Chelsea Steele. And so, all right, number 10. After Sailor Moon, magical girls started fighting evil.
Correct.
So that is something we
A lot
already
more.
talked about.
Except Cutie Honey was technically first, but she was for boys, technically.
That's so. I don't
Yeah.
even. Cutie Honey. Cutie Honey. But I agree with you on that.
Yeah. She had some shoujo offshoots, but yeah, she's all over the place.
Yeah, because what it's saying is basically most magical girls, and this is a quote from it, most magical girls wore pretty outfits and went on adventures with their friends. So, which is pretty similar to what we talked about. Dark themed girl animes took off thanks to Sailor Moon.
I think the prior ones did cover some dark themes, but yeah, and magical girls, except for Cutie Honey.
Cutie Honey was always. I feel like Cutie Honey is the filibustered.
Yeah, except for Cutie Honey.
What were you gonna say, Celine?
I was going to say it gave you darker, mature themes, like watching your friends die in front of you.
A lot.
Yeah.
And in different ways.
Yeah.
Let's see. It blended shoujo and shonen together, and many other series followed suit.
Yes, I
Mhm.
agree.
Yeah, because it's almost, I'd almost say it's like a perfect blend. It's my perfect blend, okay? Of shoujo and shonen. Because we get the pretty, we get the magical girl, we get the fun outfits, we get the fashion, but then we also get to see her kicking butt.
For sure, yeah. Took lifted a lot of the Sentai stuff, and we're gonna make it for girls.
Yeah.
Mhm. I mean, that's
The
why
girls are gonna
where
eat
we
this
get
up.
our male fans for Sailor Moon is because of that action that is in the show.
And the fights were actually pretty good, especially the movie fights. The movie fights were excellent.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see. And then Magical Girl prop weapons date back to the original Sailor Moon series, which, Nat, I'm very curious what your opinion will be on this one.
That is categorically false. Props were a thing in all of, like, the Perio anime. Pretty much, it was very popular for them to have, like, little props and things. They were simpler for sure. So I think what Sailor Moon brought was, like, the more complex looking ones that were, like, more merchandisable, or
And also the
you could latch
evolving
onto it.
of it. Like the fact that she had so many different ones was a little bit was quite different. And how
Yeah.
she constantly like evolved like a Pokemon.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not wrong.
Because Creamy Mommy had the little bell thing. I think it was like a
Saint
heart-shaped
Tail
thing.
had something too.
Yeah. So yeah, that one's false.
Okay. And then 6. Monsters of the Week plots didn't start with Sailor Moon, but they exploded in popularity after its debut.
Yeah.
Is that
for
a
sure.
kangaroo clown with a cat in a kangaroo costume?
It kidnaps
yes.
Artemis.
Oh, it's from the Supers season. That makes more sense. Okay, we're back. Supers season is a fever dream.
Oh yeah.
It's about dreams.
Good one, Celine.
The preschool toddler one freaks me out.
She's just no.
Overgrown toddler.
Yeah, just the villain of the week. But yeah, no, and it's like, honestly, like, that is an iconic part of Sailor Moon is the villains of the week. Like, I can't imagine not having a monster of the week in a Sailor Moon episode.
For sure. The designs were always so wild. It's wild to me, like, how different it was compared to, like, in the manga.
Oh,
There's
like,
only a couple of
where
those
does-
monsters are there.
Yeah, because where someone came up with these weird sexualized object monsters.
I still want to know about the vacuum
Fantastic.
cleaner.
Yeah, I love the elephant vacuum cleaner, the tennis shoe one, and
I think
what
this
was
one is
another
from
one?
this is from a dice.
Yeah, like those are like the iconic, like, good color scheme, weird ass designs that I love.
I love them so much. Let's see. Let's keep going. If it wants to load, I'm getting the spinny wheel. Okay. Magical girls fighting in teams didn't used to be a thing. Back in the early years of Magical Girls, heroines usually saved the day on her own. It wasn't until Sailor Moon came along that magical girls working in teams being normalized. While there are still plenty of examples of solo heroines, most magical girl series tend to take the Sentai team route now.
It's true. A lot of things that have girl power do this dynamic that Sailor Moon said. That's why I brought in all those, like My Little Pony and even the Disney fairies.
Yes.
Like they have that dynamic, that formula that Sailor Moon put together.
You're so on the money.
Sailor Moon walked so they could run.
And you're right. It's the ensemble, and everybody gets to find themselves. We're going to Mamo. A love interest that the heroine can't stand at first is nothing new now, but was unheard of before Sailor Moon. Anime fans have seen at least one series where the heroine can't stop fighting with her love interest by now. It becomes a trend used so often that many see it as a big cliche. However, it was more or less unheard of until 90s Sailor Moon fans gave a taste of this dynamic.
But it was only the anime.
Yeah, they don't hate each other.
Mamoru is so toxic in the anime.
I think the mischievous boy who kinds of picks on the girl main character was pretty commonplace from what I can think of. There's a Hime-chan's Ribbon, which came out literally I think the same almost the same season as Sailor Moon had that dynamic as well, where he comes into the role of first kind of picking on her being standoffish and then they grow to understand each other. So I would debate that's not really true. Or that was pretty popular before.
I think the only way that would be a little bit more is just, again, how toxic the 90s Mamoru was.
Yeah.
Compared to the manga. I think that was very new with where he kept her at arm's length, the breakup that happens, the way he treats her was very different from anything I had ever seen when it came to those two. And then when I read the manga, I was so refreshed because I hated Mamoru. I disliked him in the anime until I read the manga. I was like, leave him. Dump his back.
We wanted Seiya so badly because Mamoru sucked.
Team Seiya.
When I got to see Stars, I was like, date him. Girl, leave. Girl,
what was done? Nobody's watching.
Girl, bye.
Seiya's right.
Girl, he died already. Go with the other one.
And I wanted to bring up, because the Twitch of Spades brings up a shonen, but actually I agree with how their dynamic is. Twitch of Spades says, funnily enough, Yusuke and Keiko from Yu Yu Hakusho come to mind. Honest, they act like Yusuke and Keiko. A little less
Ranma, and Ranma 1/2 is a similar dynamic too.
Oh, 100% Ranma 1/2.
Mamoru is still more toxic than both those males.
Yeah. With the worst sense of fashion.
I think of when he breaks up with her and she's crying in the phone booth. No other male does that to the female thing. Ranma, I think he makes Akane cry, but it was a mistake and he apologizes for it. He's not fucking mean as fuck as Darien is.
Little
and
asshole.
Yusuke is never he doesn't mean to be it's the best. He hurt him and Keiko. He doesn't go out of his way to hurt her feelings.
Yes.
Where Mamoru fucking hurt her feelings.
Also, Mamoru is this dude in college. What is he? Why does he have beef with the middle schooler? Oh my god. And I'm thinking about the age dynamic. Damn.
I don't want to deal with 14-year-olds.
Why are you even interacting with this girl?
I agree with Loki, though. Anime Mamoru deserve manga personality, and I agree, and I also think anime Venus deserve manga personality. Artemis!
Oh, Artemis.
Hey,
Specialist guest.
He's a sweet boy.
Aw. Any other bashing on Mamo you want to do before we move on?
We can continue. Seiya rules all.
Team
Exactly.
Seiya. Luna is one of the first talking animal mentors, but certainly not the last. Talking
No.
animals. Oh,
No.
That is false.
really?
That was a
Yeah,
that was a huge thing in all magical girl anime prior. Another or Hime-chan's ribbon was like another. Yeah, I'm bringing it up, but there was like a talking lion, and that manga came before. All the Perio anime had like little animal mascots that are absolutely fucking adorable.
I'm so glad I read this list with you guys. No, I'm like, that's false.
That's all.
Did you do any research? All right, number 2. Before Sailor Moon, heroes weren't as relatable. Early anime heroes seemed larger than life to fans. While their powers were incredible, there was little for the audience to relate to with these powerhouses. Sailor Moon introduced the many ideas of the ordinary teenager gaining the power to save the world. This gave fans a chance. I almost made the whole quote. This gave fans the chance to see themselves in the anime heroes.
Your play. So yes and no. The reason for that is because Sailor Moon was a mature setting. And that's why fans were able to connect with them better.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that because I think they had a lot of like heroes and more slice of life situations before that. I think but because like Cutie Honey.
I can understand if you're trying to say that in Sailor Moon they had more because it was so many girls. So everyone could find someone to relate to because not everybody relates when it's only one or two. Like I could understand it that way, but people still related when it was only one person, just not everybody. And in Sailor Moon, pretty much everybody can find someone to relate to. I could take it in that notion if you do it that way.
Yeah.
All right, and then
This
one.
list.
Darn it. Magical girl transformations are now an iconic. Magical girl transformations are now an iconic part of magical girls. A magical girl isn't a magical girl without her own signature transformation sequence. Magical girl transformations are the bread and butter of the genre, each one unique to its heroine. With beautiful visuals, catchy themes, they're one of the most memorable parts of the Magical Girl series. However, before Sailor Moon took the stage, Magical Girl transformations were far and few between. But when Sailor Moon debuted, everybody was blown away by her transformation from Usagi to Pretty Guardian.
They all had there were a lot of transformations. I would say that it would be more that Sailor Moon was the first where the transformation sequences were so long, and like it was also during a time when animation or they put a lot more effort towards the animation for sure, but the Perio anime, it was more common to have a little chant again and would like spin their little magical prop around or something or do a little mini dance, and then they would transform into an idol or something or their grown-up self. But yeah, it was more popular to have like little chants. For some reason, chants were very popular.
Sailor Moon opened up the whole beautiful transformation sequence.
The makeup, like very much focused on we're gonna ham this shit up so that people like kids will latch on to this shit. Like they were really, it worked. Yeah, the chants I think were nice because you could remember them and do them yourself, and I think that was what the goal was. Like I think Hime-chan's ribbon was like Peter Pada, turn me into something, or like she would do this little routine. But yeah, it was very short.
Sailor Moon
did
like
have
30
transformation
minutes if all the
sequences.
scouts transform.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sailor Moon reused animation worse than Hanna-Barbera. Fight.
Listen. Why would you redraw it if you've already drawn it once?
Yeah.
No, and I got the no, go
stock
for it.
animation. Yes. Yeah. I think it really like stock animation, like beautiful stock animation, I think was probably popularized by it because we saw that also in Utena with like really like I have seen the sequence every single episode, but the opera is still hitting. Like the elevator. she going up them steps. Then the people are like chanting. Now it's more intense this episode because we're towards the end of the arc and things are getting real.
I did used to love when it would the beginning of if something was going on, you could always tell when it wasn't the beginning of the transformation wasn't the stock animation. And I always loved those episodes is when it was like just a little bit different for the beginning of the
Yeah.
transformation.
Also, I think it was so brilliant that Sailor Moon made it something, the start of the transformation, something every little girl or guy or anyone could do, where you just stick your hand in the air
Yeah.
and you pretend that you get the magical nail polish. And like, I'm sorry, what kid didn't do that? Like,
Yeah, and also the ending
Yes.
poses, like
and they
I
all
forget what
had
the other ones were.
distinct poses.
Yeah,
It was so good.
so good. They knew their marketing stuff.
I think it's playing off that. I think it's funny in Shugochara when they showed the outside of the transformation. It was to make fun and poke fun at the whole transformation thing on what it looks like on the outside. And I always think of that and I'm like, what are the villains?
Also, like the pre-cure transformations are fucking beautiful now. Like they knew they put money into those. Like they are music videos basically. So they really took off with that, focusing a lot of energy into that
Excited
stock
for the
animation.
Tokyo Mew Mew ones. I'm excited for the new Tokyo Mew Mew ones to see those.
I think hand drawn though always over CGI for me.
Oh yeah.
There's just something. There's just like some love or something in it.
I was pretty outraged when they CG'd in the first season of Crystal. I was like, I have to watch this every episode. You only have to do it once, man. Like you can make it good. You can even like trace over the CG. It's perfect. Like I'm fine with CG if it's like something you're doing once. But I gotta watch this every single episode.
Actually, a funny story, and then we'll wrap up, I promise. But a funny story, I distinctly remember having an argument with one of my babysitters who I made watch Sailor Moon with me. Because she's like, oh my god, they're naked. And I'm like, oh, they're not naked.
They're wearing the heavens.
I just remember
Magic.
having such a big argument with this woman. And I I made her call my parents because I'm like, no, they are not naked. How dare you do that to my favorite character?
Didn't they like censor like the boob outline too and stuff?
And the butt.
It's crazy when you watch the uncut and you're like, oh, she's got a wreck. You were like, Jesus Christ. Where did
Yeah,
you come from?
Right? I was
Y'all
not
were
like
14. Oh yeah, and they censored the badge.
the vagina bones.
They sure did.
As the internet calls them.
yeah, so no vagina bones, no booty, and no boobs.
Of course.
Yeah. No butt crack. No butt crack for you.
People don't have anatomy.
I remember that because they did have a butt crack, and that was my argument with them.
Now they do. They were always meant to have a butt crack.
Yeah, see what happens when you try to censor things, you confuse the children. Like,
Exactly.
oh, but okay, but any last points you guys want to make for this episode?
I think we good.
Wait, what did the Loki say? I think they took out the belly button. Right?
They have to take out any possible suspicion you could have that they could possibly be naked at that moment.
Oh,
They're wearing Zentai suits.
my god.
Yeah, because God forbid children feel anything because they saw the outline of a titty.
Oh. All right.
Sailor Moon turned me gay because I saw the outline of a titty.
I didn't see the outlines, and I'm still gay.
Hey, man,
At some
but
point, there was an outline of a titty. We could pinpoint the exact moment.
Right there. It's
all
because
the
I
children
rented
turned
Japanese
gay.
one. That's what happened.
What a good
I
note
saw
to
the
end
titty
on.
lines.
all right, and I believe this will bring us to the end of this episode.
What a great note to end on.
James
The
Yomi.
titty outline turned me gay.
What is this show? I love it. All right, Selene, you want to bring us to the close?
Right. So first, we're going to thank Nat for being here and let Nat Plug herself.
I am Bird King on pretty much all social media. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. Twitter is more of my shit posting hole, so you will see more cosplay on Instagram if you are interested in cosplay. If you want to see my brain dead thoughts, you can go on Twitter. But I like cosplaying a lot of Sailor Moon, a lot of older media, and magical girls, and anything with poofy dresses and lesbians. Important.
Yes, because
That's the end.
and that is an amazing cosplay. Like, just to plug a little bit, like, look at this Michiru, like, this Michiru paint photo. Perfection. Like, I'm just
I
such
didn't
a
make
big
that
fan.
one, but I like
Where
the
is it?
photo a lot. No, I didn't. But that one, I lost. I lost pieces of another cosplay I was gonna wear, and I was like, I don't have any pictures of my uniform. Time to throw it on. Allison did a really great job of photographing, and I love that photo so much.
You look so cute. I adore it.
All right. Thank you for having me.
No,
It was very enjoyable.
Oh, and what costume are you working on? Because you're working on one right now, right?
Right now, I just finished up Amalfi from The Last Unicorn. Currently, I'm working on both a Kaine and Emil from Nier. So not Sailor Moon, but this year I will have. Oh, and one of the Doom and Gloom girls from Sailor Moon is the Sailor Moon cosplay I am working on right now.
I'm so excited for that because you have a full group, right?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm going to be the purple moth girl, whatever her name is, unnamed. Going through all the niche.
I don't
Sailor
remember
Moon
any of their
cosplays.
names.
Don't think they have names.
Yeah,
I
I think
showed it.
the Doom and Gloom girls.
Yeah, Doom and Gloom girls.
Oh my gosh. All right. Oh,
They killed. They died.
but they were epic. But please follow Nat on Instagram and Twitter at bird2_king.
Thank you.
Now I know that.
2 underscores. Yeah, makes it extra readable.
Yes.
All right. And that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you for joining us for episode 9 of season 2, Formula of Moonlight, Sailor Moon's Effect. Again, we'd like to thank Nat for being here today and joining us for all of our Moonie mayhem and our titty outlines turning us gay, because that should be our tagline from now on.
Yes.
Yes.
Eternal Mooncast. Titty outlines turned us gay. As always, our fellow Moonies, make sure you follow us on all our socials. You can find those in our link tree in our description. And don't forget to join us next Saturday as we go on another Mooney adventure, from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I am your co-host, Selene. You can find me here on Twitch. I am Selene_Laufeyson. I am currently on a little hiatus because I got a new computer and I still haven't set it up to stream. Because you got to redo all that stuff. And I'm not the technical person for that. My wife is, and we have been very busy. You can also find me on Instagram. I am Catarata Cosplay. You can also find me on Facebook for that. I have not cosplayed in a while, but you can see my Serenity cosplay. You can see my Nehelenia, Ulma, Sashomaru. Let's see if I come back to the cosplay scene. It's just so much work. When I do return, I will probably be bringing back my Nehelenia. She just needs to be aired out and pressed, and she'll come back one day, I promise. And now over to Michi.
All right. And then, as always, I have been your host, Michi. You can always find my personal socials at MEW21 and mostly _cosplay. For Eternal Mooncast, we appreciate any likes, comments, follows, subscribes, or however you would like to support the show in your own way. As a quick reminder, these have just all been our personal opinions, and we celebrate and respect all Moonie opinions here. We are working hard on the show to be a place for Moonies to come together and discuss their theories and love and passion for Sailor Moon. Remember, as Sailor Neptune once said, a world without Hottergut isn't worth saving. Good night.
Good night.